Hello and welcome back to Boxing Social in association with Betfred. My name is Ayman. We are here the morning after, the afternoon after, the night before with the one and only Frank Smith. Frank, first of all, commiserations. How are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. It was it was an amazing fight and a great show and great event, but didn't go the way we wanted it, obviously. But that's boxing, and he'll be back stronger.
Frank, I know you're not much of a breakdown analytical guy for the boxing side of things, but just for your own eye, can you tell me how you saw the fight unfolding as you saw it?
I thought it was a really interesting fight. We saw it was close in the earlier rounds. All the way up to that ninth round, which was AJ nearly had him out of there, and then Usyk showed his class and quality in the last 10 to 12. I thought Usyk won by a cut 2-3 rounds, probably 2 rounds, and great performance. But Alexander Usyk's an amazing boxer. He's got to be pound for pound top 1, 2, in the world right now for what he's done in the sport. And I think AJ looked well improved from the first fight. It was a lot better performance from him. He didn't get the win, but I think he deserves a huge amount of credit for what he went in there and did against such a talented fighter.
Frank, it seemed like that round 9, everyone was on their feet. If you're writing a movie script, that would be the time in the movie where the fighter knocks the other fighter out. Did you feel it was really close, that Joshua had him on the ropes and was about to get him out of there?
Yeah, 100% it was. I mean, it was seconds away. I was trying to keep Eddie out of the ring actually at the time. He was ready to jump in there. Everyone thought that was coming to an end, but wasn't to be. Wasn't to be. But he showed a lot of heart and a lot of, he showed his fitness as well to then get through the last 3 rounds as well, because he really emptied the tank in that 9th round and went for him. So he showed a lot of fitness in those last few rounds there.
Frank, could you just make comment there on the scorecards? There was some controversy from fans' reaction of the scorecards. What did you make of the 3? It's 115, 113 twice and 116, 112.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably, I thought, like I said, two or so rounds to Usyk was probably right. But again, all of these things, it's hard, isn't it? Because it's subjective. It's one person's watching from one angle, one person's watching from another, and scores the fight completely different. I was looking at scorecards on Twitter. I always follow Twitter during the fight, and some people had Usyk 5-0 up after 5 rounds. Other people had it even. So it's just people, it's individuals' personal preference of how they score a fight, and that's always going to be the case, isn't it? There's always going to be people having an argument as to why they scored this round this way, and that's boxing. That's something that I know will be continuously looked at and always is. But ultimately, in a sport where it's ultimately opinion, isn't it? Based on what you see and how you see the fight going. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be continuous discussions about it. But look, I think Usyk obviously deserved to win the fight.
Frank, very interesting moment as well. After the bell, Anthony Joshua before that he dashed away the belts and then he took to the microphone to give a speech to the crowd. That's been met with mixed reaction as well. Can I get your thoughts on that too?
Yeah, look, I think there was, one thing I'd say is directly after a fight, we've seen it many times with a fighter on a microphone. You don't always, they've just come off the back of 36 minutes, or, nearly 45 minutes, including the breaks of having a punch up and giving their all. So then to go back straight on from there and go and say how you feel afterwards, after half an hour, you might feel differently. This man is a guy who's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's had a lot of pressure on his shoulders for a long, long time. And I think what you saw in the press conference afterwards is how he truly felt. He'd had some time to sort of take it in. But it's hard to judge someone on what they said there. But part of it was real as well as what he wanted to say. But I think he's give him time to relax. It was a hard defeat for him to take. Obviously, he wanted to win that fight. He gave it his all, and he didn't win it. And that's again, it's one of those things. It's easy for us to sit here and say, should have done this, should say this, should do this. But we haven't just been through what he's been through and the time he's been through and the pressure he's under as well.
Did you accompany Anthony into the change room afterwards? Can you take us into the change room if you did, and his immediate thoughts after the fight as well?
Look, that's for him, obviously. I don't like to talk about. That's his time. But you know, he was, as he showed afterwards, he was frustrated. He wanted to win that fight. He gave it his all. And you know, one thing about him is, you know, you used to talk about social media there and what people think. He's like Anthony Joshua is one of the nicest people you could meet in terms of the person he is. He cares about people. He's a lovely bloke. And obviously, look, social media is there just for people to give stick, really. Don't see many supportive messages a lot of the time in social media. That's social media for you. But this guy deserves all the support and praise in the world because he's actually just a nice bloke. There's so many idiots out there who people love and, you know, adore. This guy is just a nice geezer and deserves credit. You know, he's gone in there against pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. Didn't win. It's not the end for him, but I think his biggest frustration is he wanted to win so desperately.
Could you make comment on one of the leading people who were commenting on the fight being Tyson Fury, who had his opportunity to kind of react to the fight himself? I don't know if you've seen that. Eddie made mention as well during the press conference. What was your thoughts on Tyson Fury's thoughts on the fight?
I think Tyson Fury is a complete moron. You know, he's one day supportive, the next day he's an arsehole, the next day, you know, like I just said there, Anthony Joshua is a lovely, lovely man who, when you meet him, you know, like you may have an opinion on his interviews or this, that, the other. The way he treats people, how respectful he is, you know, that's what matters most. And he said it last night. That's what he wants to be respected for. Not just for his fighting, but the way he is as a person. And all these people, you know, Tyson Fury, one day says one thing, the next day says something else. It's just all a show, isn't it? This guy is a great guy with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And, you know, he deserves credit and people backing him. But Tyson Fury is Tyson Fury, and he does it all the time. He does it to everyone. One day he's your best friend, one day hates you, one day likes people. But I don't sort of take it too seriously what he comes out with.
Frank, I'm not too tuned into the commercial side of things, but does a second consecutive loss for Anthony Joshua impact his commercial saleability a lot? Can you shed any light on that as a commercial asset? Is he affected by these defeats in any sort of way?
I think I've always spoken quite openly about losses in boxing. Like, when you compare it to UFC, for example, where people go through losses after losses after losses and still come back. Ultimately, I still believe, right, and people may think I'm mad, I still believe that Deontay Wilder against Anthony Joshua, for example, is a bigger fight than Tyson Fury against Usyk, commercially. And that's not because of the belts, that's not because of, like, he wants to become undisputed, so I'm not saying the belts, like, he wanted to become undisputed champion against anyone. But I still believe that Anthony Joshua is still commercially a bigger star than Tyson Fury. Like, no one wants to lose. But, you know, Conor McGregor, he's lost quite a few times. Still the biggest star in UFC, isn't he? So people are fanboys of Tyson Fury saying, nah, he's huge. AJ's on another level. But anyway, that's a focus for another day. He's still got plenty more to give the sport, and the sport wouldn't be where it is without him.
It would be remiss if we didn't shine some light on Alexander Usyk. First of all, are there any initial talks about signing Alexander Usyk further, getting him on DAZN, or any kind of initial conversations about that?
Yeah, look, great performance, as I say, from Alexander Usyk. You can't take anything away from him. He did a tremendous job. You know, obviously we're on AJ's side and, you know, his promoter, but Alexander was he's a brilliant fighter. You know, we've had a great relationship with Alex Krasuk, Igor Klimas, and, you know, all the team, and worked with him since 2018 now, since that Tony Bellew fight. So, but look, I'm sure their focus is, you know, funnily enough, Tyson Fury's now come out of retirement, or said he'll come out of retirement as expected. So maybe he didn't like the news headlines being off him for a day. But let's see how things play out on there. I'm sure they're discussing that fight as we speak.
Final couple of questions for me, Frank. Do you have any indication as to the pay-per-view numbers at all? Do you know?
No. I'm not too sure what they were, or what they ended up at, to be honest.
And just as a whole, being in Saudi and Jeddah, your kind of reflections and experience on a great week.
Yeah, look, it's been a great week. We had a great week when we were in Riyadh, nearly 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, for the Ruiz rematch. Jeddah's a great place as well. Some great places to visit here, and it's been an exciting week. It's great to see the growth in the sport that has been spoken about a lot, and the increase in youth coming through in the sport. There was a lot of amateur stuff going on this week as well, so that's good to see, and long may it continue, because Saudi Arabia and the whole Middle East region, I think it's good for the sport the more it grows.
Frank, appreciate you giving me some time, especially when you're very, very tired. We're all tired, but especially yourself, working very hard. So thank you so much for speaking to Boxing Social.